You ready? You ready, good man?
You ready?
Root to the cubes. Let's get over here to the Zoom. So definitely thank you everybody for listening in or chiming in. And I know several will be able to see this after the fact. Many people have heard of my story in Inslee, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the story. You know, you can go to briankrice.com. But I am going to share exactly all the obstacles I've been faced with since coming to Inslee. And I'm going to share collusion. I'm going to share white collar crime. I'm going to share potential RICO Act violations with the City of Birmingham. I am going to share Department of Justice civil rights violations. I'm going to share obstruction of commerce, primarily targeting the African American community on the western side of Birmingham, Alabama today. Everybody who knows me, they know that I love history. I love history. And it was when I was living in Knoxville, Tennessee, and going all the way back to that day, the day I got baptized was the day that I heard and learned of the story of Nehemiah. Now it was the day about 18 years ago that I said, I'm gonna come back to my hometown and find a way to rebuild our walls. In the black community, just like in the story of Nehemiah, we're being attacked at all angles. Education, crime, politics, taxes, you name it. We are attacked at all angles. We need our professionals to come back to the City of Birmingham, whether it's you creating a program or whether it's you coming back to live in our communities. Our youth cannot be what they cannot see. They cannot think of it if they can't see it. And since I've come to Inslee, there's so many homeless men that come up to me every day. And they say, Brian, do you have work? And this is where the tears may come in at. Every day I tell them, I can't hire you because they locked me out of my loans. They locked me out of the equity in my buildings. And I can't hire you, black man. So if you choose to do something else, I can't stop you. But if that is why I'm here today. I'm here to stand up for our community. And what you're gonna see with Randall Woodfin, what you're gonna see with Josh Carpenter, and what you're gonna see with the connections with UAB, and what you're gonna see with the connections of others, they are locking our community out. They're locking our community out.
Next, the co-chairs of the Entrepreneurship and Economic Development Committee, Tracy Morant Adams and Dr. Josh Carpenter. We're going to take our seats now and we're going to watch a video that's going to introduce our mayor.
I personally don't define Birmingham as downtown. Right. I define Birmingham as its lowest quality of life neighborhood. So yeah, it's a tale of two cities, man. We got this pocket growth downtown. Mm-hmm. People are excited to be downtown. You know, you have all this entertainment, and people wanted to come into the city to be entertained. I'm cool with that. Mm-hmm. but we're not taking care of the people that actually live in the city at the same time. And that's not gonna come from your mayor's office. I don't know where she's gonna get it. Somebody has to lead that conversation.
As a city, Birmingham is at a pivotal time for how it chooses to address the needs of its citizens and prioritize those issues that will have a direct impact on an improved quality of life for its residents.
But what I truly believe in is the spirit of the city of Birmingham. What I truly believe in is the people of Birmingham. They just want to feel safe on their own porch and in their front yard. Rest assured, we will go to bat every day to make this city safer.
It will take a team effort to bring about change, and the community must be the center of that change and be a part of the team.
I am committed to building our community through servant leadership. That is fully centered around putting people first.
Martin Luther King said that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Randall Woodfin.
Hey, I love you too. Hey, good evening, everyone. You know, for everything I'll say tonight, there's probably nothing more important than the next two words, which are thank you. Thank you to General Krulak, and thank you, Bobby Knight, and thank you, co-chairs. And to each of you tonight, thank you for being here. You know, this event is not just about my first 100 days in office. Tonight is about acknowledging where we are as a community, to take a pause and have a real conversation about the opportunities and challenges before us. After all, I did campaign on the simple theme of putting people first. We deserve better. I know you all remember that. Truthfully, I still believe that. We deserve better.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And first, let me congratulate my cohort over the last several months and congratulate him on his new role. He's going to do a great job. Mr. Mayor, we are excited to share this evening some highlights of the feedback received from citizens, and there was a lot of it. In fact, one of our clearest insights from this process, which you will read about in the report, individuals are eager to be involved in shaping the city's economic vision. You could feel the excitement and energy time and time again in our meetings as we visited with citizens, with advocates, and also with leaders in the field of economic development. People are hopeful and very eager to participate in both the design and execution of an inclusive economy for Birmingham. Specifically, over the last 4 months, Josh and I met with many, over 200 residents. And one of our public input meetings, there were over 150 individuals present, representing 60 of our neighborhoods. And they were there to talk about small business development, entrepreneurship in our communities. Mayor, there was a lot of passion. We heard a lot of great ideas. And as you would imagine, there was some frustration. And one of the biggest sources of frustration was the process of starting a business and securing or renewing a business license. In our survey responses, the issue of business licensing was cited as one of the most significant barriers to doing business in the city of Birmingham. And we didn't just hear this frustration during the input session. We also had the opportunity to convene a small group setting with many entrepreneurs, and we heard from them the same thing. I distinctly remember one comment made by an entrepreneur who said, "I don't even tell people how to get a business license or to get one. I just tell them to wait until they get the $100 fine." Now, that's a problem. And we know, Mayor, that you want that to be corrected. Currently, the process does not collect data on key performance indicators that the Woodfin administration has deemed very critical. For example, Mayor, we were unable to obtain the number of minority and women-owned businesses that have been granted licenses in Birmingham. So in our report, you will see we recommend streamlining the process through cross-departmental collaboration. You will also see we recommend that the administration intentionally define the key performance indicators by which it will measure the success of building Birmingham's inclusive economy, which was so eloquently articulated as part of the opportunity agenda. You know, we really value what we measure, and therefore it's imperative that an infrastructure be put in place to collect and then measure necessary data related to successful economic development opportunities. And I'm going to turn it over to the new head of ED to tell us a little more. Josh.
Thank you, Tracy. And I have to say, it has been a distinct pleasure to serve alongside and learn from Tracy throughout this process and with many of you in this room. Tracy, Serena, and I have really spent the last 4 months diving deep into what makes up the economic landscape in this city. And we've been spending a lot of time thinking about what it really means to put people first. And as you said in your opening remarks, we absolutely believe that putting people first is more than a strategy, or it's more than a slogan, it's an economic strategy. It's more than a motto, it's a mission. And we believe that, though the growth and the momentum the city has seen is important, there are too many people who are still hurting, too many people who haven't felt the opportunities in their neighborhoods and in their backyards. We believe that Birmingham is experiencing, as you said in the opening video, a tale of two cities. So while we've had incredible wins, and just last week we beat Los Angeles to be designated as a smart city. A few weeks ago we were, yeah, we can clap for that. A few weeks ago we were designated as a Rise of the Rest city that will add capital to many of the startups in our community. We also had one of our homegrown, one of our own startups exit and sell to Target for $550 million. Ship. It's a big win. It's a big deal. But despite all this growth, despite all the momentum we have seen, Birmingham still has a 30% poverty rate, a 42% poverty rate for women and children. Over 60% of the households in this city make less than $40,000 a year. That's less than the living wage that the folks at MIT tell us we should be putting together for our citizens here. And recently, we learned that even though our unemployment rate remains fairly low, it's still one of the hardest places in the country to go find a job if you don't have one. Too many people in this room, too many people that we encountered were living that experience. So that's the challenge that you and I find ourselves in. That's the opportunity that we also find ourselves in. And we know from research that inclusion really is the other side of the coin to innovation. And for every day that we aren't inclusive, every moment, every strategy, every tactic, everyone that doesn't include all of us, we all lose. So we firmly believe that Birmingham can be the best place in the world to change the world because it already has been. But in order to do that, we have to lay the groundwork for your vision. We have to lay the groundwork for ourselves as a community to be a hub, a national hub for qualified and diverse talent that fuels prosperity through inclusive growth and innovation. Every strategic goal that we have needs to be anchored in that concept, built upon our distinct industry clusters and occupational competencies in our region. As you know, we live in a knowledge-based economy, and in order to compete in that economy that's more globally interdependent, we have to be relentlessly competitive with talent. The talent that we grow here in our neighborhoods and among our sons and our daughters, but also the talent that we retain. It's already at our companies. It's already working in different places throughout our city. And then talent that we need to attract in order for our city to grow and to compete and ultimately for our citizens to thrive. Mayor Woodfin, that's what we've got for you.
So as you all can see, Tracy and Josh are super on point. Truthfully, the pain and frustration that our entrepreneurs and our small business owners feel, I know because they share it with me. And y'all got to know, well, if you don't know, I would say one of the most curious things that I've gotten over the last 100 days via text, which I'm not sure how somebody got my number, or a Facebook message, or see me in the street, or see me walking out of City Hall. I need or want a job. So there's a real struggle in our community in the space of opportunity. So what you share is really important. And as mayor, how do I go about creating more opportunities and creating a space for an inclusive economy for people to have the opportunity for employment or for an employer who wants to be here? The fact that we don't even know who is a minority-owned or has a minority-owned business in the city, y'all, you should be frustrated. Think about this. This city is 74% black. But we don't know that. We don't collect that information. That's just bad business. So in the space I'm in as mayor, I think it's extremely important that we double, triple down on the space of making sure we're more efficient in the space of people who want to do business in our city, people who want to open their business, people who want to expand their business. But the process, you started out with the process of sharing the frustration. Our city hall has to get that process right. Because if we want our city by 2020 to be the national hub for any women-owned, minority-owned person that wants to open their business, the process is backwards or messed up. We'll never reach that. And that's more than the goal. That's what and who we need to be as a city. So I'm committed to making it better. You know what? Before y'all jump somewhere to the next group, and I'll need the blessings of the council. I see a couple of council folk here. I want to change the division of economic development to the department, renaming it the Department of Innovation and Economic Opportunity. I mean, consider there's a distinction between a division and a department. I think one of the easiest things to see is, I think for a department standpoint, there are more resources, there are more people, and we're more intentional in that space, and it's a priority. If we're going to talk about having an inclusive economy, we need to make this a department. So, good council folk and friend, I'll be coming to you soon.
So I'm always studying Inslee history. I wasn't able to get everything done the way I wanted to get done, but God is in control. And I think African Americans in particular need to see this slide right here. In 1977, this article was written about 1976. African American contractors received $476 out of $20 million in city contracts. Today, we're still receiving 1% and 2% of city contracts. Yesterday, I was talking to a local rep, and he said on the $90 million stadium that Randall approved, one of his first things, there's probably less than a 3% minority participation. This person said he's only aware of a few $100,000. It started off as a $173, $174 million contract. Now it's like $193 million. So we're giving our funds away, and we're not building us up. So now I'm gonna go to this next thing. So when you go through downtown Birmingham, you see the exact same companies that sued the City of Birmingham for reverse discrimination in 1977 after blacks received their first 10% set-aside contracts. Brassfield and Gorey, Bryce Building Company, Doster Construction, Reeves is still around, Russo is still around, Gwyn is still around. I think Bacchus has become like an engineering company. This is critical when it comes to the African American community. Because when I think about Inslee, I cannot find any black contractors to do any work because we've been locked out. And we have to figure out how to get past that. So that's an area we're gonna probably touch on a little bit later as we get into questions. And remember that was 77. We thought we won in 63. 14 years later, we were still behind. All right? This is what made the suburbs the suburbs. This picture here. 1954, 100% GI loans. All right? But when we go to these neighborhoods, we can't get loans. They're getting 100% buildings paid off. Later today, I'm going to I'm gonna get back off a share screen. I'm gonna jump into what I call the dynamite box. And a little bit later, I'm going to be pulling information out of what I call the dynamite box, because it actually is a real dynamite box. And the same types of sticks of dynamite that were pulled out of it was the same ones that bombed out 4 little girls a long time ago. Now I'm gonna jump into what I filed yesterday. It's a 178 page document. So yesterday, for those who are able to see the screen, are they able to see the screen on the live? All right. I titled it, A Plea for Economic Justice Regarding Public Corruption and American Stolen Dreams in the City of Birmingham and the Obstruction of Commerce of majority black business districts. When I came to Inslee in 2018, I would ask Josh Carpenter, I would ask the representatives from Rev Birmingham, I would ask representatives from the City of Birmingham, what happened to Inslee? Why was it not in an opportunity zone? They said it was a clerical error. Today, we're gonna show you there was no clerical error. Today, we're gonna show you what they hope someone like me who cares so much for our community would not find. I'm gonna show you the letter that Randall Woodfin and 28 supporters sent to Kay Ivey.
Now, Brian, let me stop you 1 second.
Got it.
Go back just a little bit and explain what happened to your buildings once you bought them, and then go back to where you are.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. So that's a good point. So we'll jump on this slide, and I just move it over.
For the people that don't know your story.
For the people that don't know the story, for those who can see the screen behind me, but if you can look up 600 19th Street, Inslee, 604, 606, 608, 610, 615, 617, and 619 19th Street, Inslee. I bought these buildings in 2018. And since you're bringing up that story, before I bought these buildings, every city plan regarding Inslee, my buildings are in the center of every city plan. Every one. Every plan, my buildings are in the center of every one. Every plan, my buildings are in the center of every one. But when a young African-American male buys those buildings, and I go to Synovus Bank, Synovus Bank delayed me for 8 months, and I asked them every 2 weeks, you know, this is all the documents you need, and then every 2 weeks they asked me to submit new documents. Then every 2 weeks they asked me to submit new documents. And then I went to other banks, but it was always, they always gave that quick excuse. Due to speculative financing, we can't invest in Inslee kind of stuff. But then to fast forward, I'm gonna zoom down for those who can see the screen perfectly. And I'll share my screen just to help with the visual. So I bought these buildings right here, and when I zoom down, this is what they compared my buildings to on the appraisal. Any questions?
Hello, my name is Brian Rice, and I have property at 610 19th Street, as well as 615 19th Street. We can't allow what's happening to Inslee to keep happening. I'm very passionate about this thing, and I know my voice changes, and I'm not the only one. We can't get funding for downtown Inslee. Inslee has been a red line, and I have buildings. I have 8 buildings, and Synovus Bank told me my buildings have zero value. Zero value. And met with my attorney. We're gonna do a press release. We're gonna make this public. And I know there's at least 10 or 20 other people who are struggling to get money from Regions Bank, BBVA, Wells Fargo, and we must stand up for our community. Because the only reason why my buildings are not renovated is because they say my buildings have zero value. If these buildings was in Avondale, they would have 100% value. So we need people to stand up for us.
How are you doing? Nelson Dean.
Brian Rice.
Nice to see you. Hey, Mike. Hey. All right. I don't know if y'all want to go in there with a table somewhere better.
I think it will, just in case I need to bring out a
Perfect.
laptop or something. That's why. I'm a gadget guy, so I bring everything with me.
So first, let me apologize again for all this time delay. I mean, this is, I know you're at your wit's end with us, and I'm sorry. It's. I should have had Bill out of the loop, because Bill's job is retail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bill's a very good banker. He's very good at running retail. You know, could we have been further? Maybe a little bit, although the appraisal, as you know, is just a huge piece of it from our perspective. So, but Mike is, I don't know if y'all had a chance to catch up a little bit. We just started talking with him. Mike he's one of our best commercial bankers and has worked with Rev Long a little bit, and Dave, Dave Fleming well, and he's worked with Rev. Because I've looked on the map and I've got a general understanding of where you sit relative. Ramsey McCormick Building, isn't that the name of it?
It is the Ramsey McCormick.
And that's the one the city bought.
1981, 83, somewhere in that period of time.
Well, why did it get publicity? I guess was Bell talking about moving police headquarters there in the last few years?
That was Bell's #1 push.
Okay, so that's why it was in the press.
And that was Randall's #1 kill. But the guy who owns, the attorney who owns about an entire block immediately adjacent to the Ramsey McCormick and another 2 or 3 more buildings, he and others sued the city for never renovating. Okay. He's received several payments, him and these others, and because of that lawsuit.
And Dave and Atticus, I guess, are probably the obvious, unless there's somebody else you know. I mean, because they can, my understanding, they can coordinate all these communications with the city and things rather than somebody bouncing around to 6 or 8 different departments. And I think Dave said Josh has been out here. Josh Carpenter's been somewhat involved out here, and obviously. All right, so what do we do?
They compared it to rural farmland 14 miles away in Concord, Alabama. They compared my buildings to an abandoned car wash in Bessemer. An abandoned car wash in Bessemer. And I'm gonna zoom back up. There's nothing about these buildings that look like rural farmland. There's nothing that like these buildings that look like an abandoned car wash. So you'll see in my document, I use a penny a lot of times to show that you're saying with a single penny, you can buy 8 commercial buildings in downtown Ensley. So you're saying with a $1, you can buy 800 commercial buildings with $1. 100 commercial buildings. And so now you gotta get back into Synovus Bank, Randall Woodfin, and the truth. You gotta get into that. I had no idea, and I was wondering why in the world did Randall get mad at me for, expressing my concern regarding a bank and economic injustice in Ensley. And then I kept studying everything I could study. And then I learned that he's on several boards with Nelson Bean. I'm just taking it off. He's on several boards with Nelson Bean, the CEO of Synovus Bank. But then I'm gonna show you today that on Randall's 90th day in office, Randall sends a letter to Kay Ivey. This is 90th day. This is almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And this letter has so much corruption in it, and I'm gonna jump into it in a second. Let's go back to, I'm gonna jump into it for a second. And so let's step back. On March 6, 2018, you sent a letter. And let's talk about what was in the letter. And I'm gonna show you what happened to Bush Hills. And I'm gonna show you what happened to every commercial district that was included and excluded. And I'm gonna reshare the screen so everybody can see it as best as I can. All right, so you should be able to see the screen again. And Kay Ivey selected, I think, 25 census tracts in Birmingham, Alabama. Every census tract on here is listed in green that she selected. Eastlake and back at the airport was first. This is the priority that Randall sent it to Kay Ivey. Woodlawn was second. That's where Real Birmingham sits. Airport, Inglenook, Airport, Stockham. Then they got it to the Superfund site in Collegeville.
Now, what is a census tract?
A census tract. So to break down what a census tract is, and this is just my quick summary. So Birmingham, I think, is broken up into, I think it might be 99 census tracts. I can't remember the exact number, might be 69. Don't know the exact number of census tracts off the top of my head for Birmingham. But let's just use UAB census tract for example. That's census tract 45, because we're gonna talk about 45 today. 45, that means a lot to a lot of people. We're gonna talk about census tract 27, which is downtown Birmingham. So they divide the city into all these different quadrants, and this is how they define the demographics per that area. So whenever it's time to do redistricting and all that stuff, they base it on the census tracts and the population the poverty, all, the demographics of the census tracts. So in the UAB census tract, if you are from Birmingham, Alabama, you know that the UAB census tract is by far the most developed census tract we have in Birmingham. I'm gonna do this again. All right, no, I think you're able to see what I'm seeing up here. So let's talk about the tale of two cities. In the last 4 years, this map here shows all the investment on the west side of Birmingham. This map right here shows all the investment in Center City and downtown. Josh Carpenter, Randall Woodfin, and everyone said this area was struggling economically. This area is distressed. This area is in need of resources. This area is distressed. And if we go to Inslee, the only project that was going on in Inslee was based on a court order. So if you take away the court order, that wouldn't even been going on. The other property that just got listed recently is Inslee High School. The Inslee High School property just got added, but if we start talking about collusion, it may need to be taken off. And then here is the crossplex. So if we take away Larry Langford, doesn't even get started. But here is the tale of two cities. This is several billion in investments and almost nothing where about 75,000 people who are 99% African American are. Any questions you got? Any thoughts?
One of those particular structures in the black community that what are the three structures in the black community that they did pay attention to? Do you know?
Well, yeah, so just to repeat that, the Ramsey McCormick, which is based on a lawsuit from Antonio Sperling, and then here we have the Inslee High School development. But if we talk about Josh Carpenter, and we talk about the fact that there was multiple black developers that put in contracts, and then we talk about the fact that there was a no bid contract that went to this individual, it's like we're excluding our own. And here is the crossplex. So I'm gonna stop share here, and I'm gonna go back, and feel free to jump in any questions you have. And I'm gonna show you something else. Now the fact that you mentioned, the Ramsey McCormick. All right, I think I can share this screen again. Got multiple screens. Just share.
What happened to the Washington building in Inslee?
Which Washington building?
Which Washington building, Ms. Jennifer? That was a question from me, but.
Okay, so I'm gonna share something that Irvin Henderson, Randall Woodfin definitely don't want me to share.
And also, let's not forget about the 90 days, so I want you to go back to that too.
Got it, we'll go back to that. Are y'all able to sit over here? So now I have this picture up here. So 1 block away from me is the historic Ramsey McCormick building. So in April of 2019, Randall makes this announcement about they receive a $25 million investment from NCRC, National Community Reinvestment Coalition. At the time, Bob Dickerson was the chairperson, who is a local favorite, and it's an organization that's set up to help African Americans with redlining concerns all across the country. So it's a great organization. Not going to knock any of that because they actually helped me. But here we're going to talk about the Ramsey McCormick. The Ramsey McCormick RFP is due April of 2019. The exact same time you receive a $25 million investment from NCRC. Who gets to bid and who wins the bid for the Ramsey McCormick? The founder of NCRC. Okay, so when I go and ask the founder for help and I ask Randall for help, they all kind of, pushed me to the side. But my story kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually we had a banking summit in Birmingham, Alabama because of the story. But this is that potential collusion that a man without integrity will perform. And I'm going to show more. A man without integrity will perform. I really believed in Randall when I came to Ensign. I'm like many other people, I believed in him. But here, let me share it again. But here, on Monday, October 29th, 2018, Randall is at City Lab Detroit conference. And Randall says, in Birmingham, we did it. The mayor's office did it. Birmingham, we chose the census tracts we wanted to send to the governor for opportunity zones. That alone lets us know we are in the driver's seat. So, let's jump into Josh Carpenter. Give me just a second. Let's jump into Josh Carpenter. Josh Carpenter in this Route 50 article, I'm gonna make sure all of these articles are on my website by the end of the day, briancrice.com. I'm gonna even update whatever video we have today. We're gonna make sure everything's there. But Josh Carpenter, when talking about opportunity zone, he said we're gonna make sure we identify areas that are both ripe for investment and struggling economically. Well, UAB brings over $7 billion into the city every year. And it has the largest funded school system in the state. So you can't tell me that UAB is struggling. And Census Tract 45 is struggling. A few years ago, and we'll get to you, Salita. A few years ago, a lady created a study for her either master's or PhD. And in the UAB Census Tract, the occupied home ownership rate had went up 4,300 and something percent. In other areas like 5%, 2%, that area is over 4,000. But according to him, it's struggling economically. But the other part that if everybody go and look at this Route 50 article, August 5th, 2018, read it from the top to the bottom because Huntsville is in the middle. And then it comes back to Birmingham. John Hilliard in the article says, may find in a second, but John Hilliard, oh, y'all gonna see this in a second too. I'll find it. John Hilliard in the article said, I don't know how Ensley got left out. He said he heard from Carpenter that was left out due to an error. But whenever you go to the City of Birmingham website, they always would say, oh, KIV or the state did not put Ensley back in. But I want every African American to know that Randall sent that after the deadline, which you will see in the letters. I'm gonna post all these letters on my website by the end of the day. And in that same Route 50 article, the State Department, ADECA representative said, we looked into what happened with Ensley and we found out that there was no error. So the state is already disagreeing with Josh and Randall. But whenever we ask in our community, they'll just say it was a clerical error or it was a state fault. No, you excluded.
So did John Hilliard know? Act like he didn't know, is he?
So let's think about that. John Hilliard is the district councilman for Ensley, North Birmingham, Wylam, Pratt City, and probably a few other areas that I'm missing. But I'm mentioning these commercial districts for a reason. Because Pratt City was excluded, Ensley was excluded, Wylam was excluded, and he's over economic development for the city council. So he could say plausible deniability all he wants. But if I, an individual, can go to the city website and dig deep and find the letter, him and his staff have full access to the letter. So since you mentioned that, because you talked recently about the Mayor Council Act, and this is very important for us. Any concerns with that? You mentioned something yesterday about a city manager.
The reason being is, it's obvious certain neighborhoods in Birmingham is not getting looked at. Everything on the west side, some things on the east side. If he's over economic development and a city council person, but is claiming that he didn't know, that doesn't sound right. To who could listen to that and say it sounds right? You understand what I'm saying? It's you can't be over economic development and a council person for a specific district that was left out. It's almost like it's designed to be left out.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to share, and I'm gonna talk about the design, and I'm gonna talk about everybody that I believe that is running for city council. I believe it's very, or mayor's office. I believe it's very important that you know the details of the Mayor Council Act. It's so important.
He has talked about your burning port over here. So he said you have global business, but you have no business coming into your own district.
All right, so I'm going back into here for example. So Bush Hills, this is the exact order that was sent to the governor. What was strange to me when I looked at this, and it only affects African Americans, primarily, we'll say primarily. So obviously everything in green in this exact order is exactly what Kay Ivey selected. The exact order it was sent to her. But when you get to the recent African American reviving of Bush Hills is excluded. It's like they just jumped over Bush Hills and Fairview. And then they put the Ensley High School development in there. It's like, okay, why you put the Ensley High School development, and you don't put downtown Ensley, which has over 100 businesses in the area. And then when you get to Ensley, downtown Ensley, it was ranked 30 and 31. But I want to jump to here because this page is what kind of blew my mind. And this is how I know somebody from Birmingham is not the one putting this together. So, all right, you got the Ruffin Mountain area, you got the Glen Iris area, but then you get Tarrant. I just kind of color coded it, like red for sure is left out. Red for sure is left out. And then these areas, I just kind of color coded because these was kind of all on the east side kind of thing, or I can't remember exactly why, but I know red was left out. But now we're about to jump into this orange. Orange represents area that's not in the city of Birmingham. But the city of Birmingham is the one submitting it for Birmingham. So who puts Tarrant, Centerpoint, Pinson and Apple Valley, Centerpoint above Pratt City, above Wyland, above Bellevue Heights, above Central Park, above West End, above the Elmwood area, above the Harriman Park area, above Cooper Green and Henry Crumpton? I don't know who is leading Randall, but it ain't Randall. Randall, I'm gonna step back for a second just because I have nothing against you. I believed in you. I wanted you to win just like I want everybody else to win. But you chose to be that Steven version of Django. You chose to be that Sambo version in Uncle Tom's Cabin. You chose that. You chose that. My dream is to come to my community and find a way to develop. You chose to send inspectors here at 7 o'clock on the mornings and file warrants for me and the previous owners to show up because I got blight on my buildings. Hold on, I'll find it in a second. Are you able to see this one? They can see it. So you chose to send city inspectors here and some random guy on almost the exact same day to come and take pictures. And then and you're gonna issue a warrant to the previous owner to show up at municipal court for blight. If you're gonna get somebody for blight, get everybody for blight. But I'm gonna step back to urban impact for a second. I wrote a grant for Inslee. I won the grant for Inslee. I wrote every single letter of it. $67,000 was supposed to help me renovate the front of my buildings. About 12 months later, about 8 months or so later, you tell Urban Impact, make sure don't no money go to Brian. And then you want to start sending city inspectors over here. And so I said, I'm not gonna fight you even though I know the story behind it. I said, I'm gonna just be quiet and I'm gonna make sure I spread the resources out in the community as best as possible. We've created grant workshops. We've created marketing programs for different people. We create videos for people. I said, I'm not gonna fight you because I don't wanna lose it for my community. But you have a vindictive spirit, and that spirit is my enemy. You ain't my enemy. That spirit is my enemy. Yeah, that spirit. You looking real hard. Anybody got any questions? I'm just going hard.
So when was this? When did this happen?
I feel like it's all been happening for a long time. So somebody asked the question, when did this happen? As far as this was about 3 weeks or so ago. With this inspector showing up at like 7 something in the morning, and one of my neighbors called me and say, "Hey Brian, somebody's out here." I got some neighbors who love me, and that means a whole lot to me.
Hey Brian,
what you got? I'm not sure. All right, so
can you go back to that disparity map showing the projects, and is that the updated map?
Oh, okay, all right.
So that the camera can get that.
So I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna move this up real fast, and I'm gonna show you the investments in downtown Birmingham.
That's what you need.
So I'm really about to show this one. So this is the tale of two cities. This is the struggling, economically distressed area, according to Josh Carpenter, Randall Woodfin, and Ray Watts and everybody else. Because Ray Watts and about 27 other people sent in letters in support this. So it wasn't just Randall. But now let me jump to the next page. This is the first time anybody's ever seen this. This is every mention of every Opportunity Zone project in Birmingham. So when I look at it, you got this $40 million development right here, which is in 5 Point South. 5 Point South is struggling economically, according to Josh Carpenter. So let's step back. 1 block away from this development is where Josh Carpenter now works at Southern Research. All right, so you made sure that your area was taken care of. And that's a $40 million development, $5 million from Opportunity Zones. And when you go down here, these are a $23 million development, 11 million Opportunity Zones. And then here, I listed this bank, Service First Bank, because there was only two banks that sent in letters of support to Randall. Service First Bank and the bank that gave me the $0 appraisal. The bank of here, the Bank of Columbus, Georgia, Synovus Bank. And, you know, at the end of the day, I know, and as well as my neighbors know, we have a perfect opportunity for a class action lawsuit.
How coronavirus helped Bayer property move forward?
So these are just the titles of all the articles. These are titles of all the articles. So I have to go into that article. But if you Google any of these articles, they all pop up on Birmingham Business Journal. And we have probably anywhere from $150 to $200 million in just Opportunity Zone funding that was designed for areas like Inslee, that was designed for areas like Wyland and Pratt City, that designed for areas like 5 Points West. So let's step back for a second. So everybody knows of Carlos Dansby, and he wanted to renovate the Winn-Dixie. So the Opportunity Zone stopped at Warrior Road and at 3rd Avenue West. It doesn't go to the Winn-Dixie side. And now I'm gonna show you why. Now I'm gonna show you this because this is, in the legal world, they call this legal cause. In the legal world, they call this material facts. In the legal world, they call it overwhelming evidence. All right, so let me find it real fast. I moved stuff recently. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This chart was sent to Governor Kay Ivey. Remember, Randall and Josh blamed Kay Ivey for Inslee being excluded, but they didn't talk about all the other areas being excluded. So here is 35233. A lot of times I'm around Railroad Park too, and Railroad Park area is listed at the very top. You know, they say it's got 21 brownfield sites over there. Okay. A brownfield property is anything that potentially has asbestos and potentially has an old use, an old manufacturing building. It could be like the Lyric Theater in downtown or the Alabama Theater. It could be an old grocery store. It could just be anything old, or it could be something abandoned. You know, but I just want y'all to think about whatever your zip code is. So I'm in Inslee, 35218. And according to the City of Birmingham, there's 0 city assets in downtown Inslee, and 1 brownfield site in the former headquarters of TCI. So let's jump to the next page. These are all city-owned properties at the time of sending the letter to Kay Ivey. My buildings are in the middle of all of those. That's 5 properties. So let's think about it. So if you rank it correctly, we get 3 points for every city asset. That's 15 points. So let's jump back. If you give Inslee 15 points, we go from 12 to, what's that, 27. So we're now, our zip code is ranked 5th on the list instead of like 10th or so on the list. But let's jump again. Oh, my neighbor has this study that Birmingham did just a year before I came here, and it showed brownfield properties. So, but they say there are no brownfield properties over here. There's 1 brownfield property over here. So let's go back to the map. If you add the brownfield properties, which I know is over 35, because Inslee has a lot of old buildings built with asbestos and built with everything else. There's many underground storage tanks over here, all kind of hazards. So if you enter correctly, Inslee is not ranked number 29 and 30 or 30 or 31, it's ranked number 1. So yeah, it's ranked number 1. And Bush Hills would be ranked in maybe the top 5 or 6. Pratt City would be the top 5 or 6. Central Park area, if you count it right, it'll be in the top 5 or 6. But when it comes to our assets, you put the wrong information down. You know, so in the recent mayoral debate, they said, what are we gonna do about, you know, what are your comments about economic development, the booming economic development in Birmingham? So let's take away the $200 or $300 million of projects from opportunity zones. Would it be booming in the same way? You know, that area still be going well, and there's all kind of stuff in there because the Alabama Association of Realtors said this area was already doing well. We didn't need any opportunity zones. So that's the portion related to opportunity zones. There's a whole lot more, and I'm going to be sharing more, and I'm going to be putting more together later. But we're going to talk about a few other things since we're here. So let's jump back to that Mayor Council Act, because you're running for City Council. You're running for City Council. You're running for Mayor, and there might be 1 or 2 other people running for City Council. Let me go into the dynamite box. I'm going to go into the dynamite box. We don't know why the City Council, why the Mayor Council Act was created in its current form in the first place. Odessa Woodfin wrote this around 1980 or 1981. So it was supposed to be a city manager council form of government.
That's why I mentioned city manager.
But the reason they said we don't want a city manager because we don't want to take a chance of an outsider running the city.
Yeah.
So it was created with the wrong intentions in the first place. And then you go all the way to 2016. So I know people seeing me on, conversations with Mayor Bell and all that other stuff, but I'm just gonna speak pure facts. Oliver Robinson was corrupted at the time that he pushed for legislation for the Mayor Council Act to be changed. And the Mayor Council Act weakened the powers of the city council. So the city council needs to do all they can to use that corrupt situation to get their power back. They need to do all they can to get it back. But the one thing that every city councilman has that's in the Mayor Council Act is you have the ability to investigate anything. John Hill, you had the ability to investigate what happened. Darrell Quinn, you had the ability to investigate what happened. Valerie Abbott, you had the ability to investigate what happened. Smisserman, Woods, even Scales at the time was on the council. At the time Robinson was on the council, but by the time I show up, it's a new council there. But you still have the ability to investigate and use that power to, decide on how you're gonna vote going forward. But they excluded our communities. So once again, I spent a lot of time studying history. Any thoughts, any questions? You got anything? Okay, got it. What you got, Feline?
What is the investigative process for the city council, and have they had attorneys to be able to investigate, or a legal team associated with the city council to investigate during these tenures as it relates to the Mayor Council Act and this issue?
Well, I don't spend all of my time just studying the city. But right now, I do not believe they have their own attorney. They voted on it and talked about it.
They talked about it because when they signed the $90 million stadium deal, they did not have an attorney. And that was some of the biggest issues that most people had. You don't sign something that major without one. I think they got a lobbyist and an attorney now. But there's no big deals coming right now either, except for the World Games.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned the World Games, because everybody around the World Games is African American.
Right.
And all our communities excluded from the opportunity to develop our communities with free tax write-offs.
Right. There's no talk about Airbnbs for areas in West End and different Ainsley, different things like that can benefit, because there's not going to be enough hotels. They actually got to go to Shelby County and surrounding areas. They're not even prepared to have them here.
I'm glad you mentioned the World Games, because everybody around the World Games was African Americans.
Right.
And all of our communities excluded from the opportunity to develop our communities with free tax write-offs.
Right. There's no talk about Airbnbs for areas in West End and different Ainsley, different things like that can benefit, because there's not going to be enough hotels. They actually got to go to Shelby County and surrounding areas. They're not even prepared to have them.
I'm gonna figure out how to play this thing.
I'm excited about the opportunity
I'm gonna step back for a second, and I want to figure out how to share it so everybody can see it at the same time.
And ladies and gentlemen, the ones that are just checking in and not necessarily political across the social media platform, except for Twitter, is that necessarily not. Today we have Brian K. Rice, and he actually has filed a lawsuit with the Department of Justice, and that's what we're going over now. We have been, go back and check out the information. We're actually getting ready to go deeper now into the lawsuit of everything and what's been going on. If you have any questions, click like and share, but also just feel free to ask them and we will try to get to them.
Okay, so just to confirm what you said, it's actually a formal complaint.
A formal complaint.
A formal complaint with the Department of Justice. So just to remind everybody, I sent a formal complaint yesterday, August 13th, to the Department of Justice, the Department of the Treasury, and the Department of the IRS. I sent it to the Department of the Civil Justice and Civil Rights Division. I sent it to the FTC. I sent it to the Securities and Exchange Commission. I sent it to Terry Sewell. I sent it to the District Attorney. And so we ain't playing no games. We gonna stand up for our community today, and we're not gonna let our own tear our community apart. I'm gonna go back to 1908. I wish I had the book up here right now, but there was a book written in Birmingham, Alabama, and every African American needs to read the book. It's called Cooperation is the Solution to the So-Called Negro Problem in Birmingham, Alabama. So let's use today's terms. Working together is the solution to our problems in the Black community. Working together. This book talks about African Americans in 1907 and 1906 going and supporting every business but their own. And then you go and the civil rights movement happened in the 60s, and then you go look in the 80s, and the exact same thing is happening over and over. We're not supporting our own. But I'm gonna play this clip from Terry Sewell, and I'm gonna play one or two other clips from a few other people. Cause I don't just speak in opinion, I speak in receipts, as what Randall said at the Detroit City Lab. I speak in receipts.
To help underserved communities. I'm excited about the opportunity to help underserved communities. I just want to make sure that the opportunity zones are doing exactly what was intended. That it was an opportunity to get investors, private investors, to invest in public projects and to invest their capital gains in areas that are underserved. And unfortunately, the rulemaking by the Treasury Department did not include any special reporting requirements. So how do we know that this capital, this excess capital, is actually being invested in underserved communities? So we're excited about the opportunities that opportunity zones actually will afford underserved communities. My bill, in particular, wants to make sure that these investors do report where they're putting their money, how many people they're hiring locally, what the economic impact are to the communities that these projects are located in. And I think that that's about accountability. We want to know if opportunity zones are really reaching the areas that they're intended to, and what the economic impact of those investments are.
All right, so that was that was Terry Sewell, and I'm gonna share a video. Just give me a small break as well. I'm gonna go to YouTube so everybody will be able to see it.
Everyone good? Great. I know people are still getting situated, but I really want to jump right in here. So when we talk about opportunity zones and kind of the promise that they provide, which is this idea that we'll take areas of low income, of disinvestment, revitalize them, it'll be good for everyone, the citizens, everyone, businesses, etc. This isn't the first time we've heard this, right? This isn't the first type of program here or abroad that has been piloted to attempt this.
But if they want to make a return, they ought to go strategies. You have to have those both on the table from day one, we think, in order to make this work for the people we want it to work for.
Yeah, go ahead.
In Miami, who applied? Who sent the census tracts request to the government? So in Birmingham, we did it. The mayor's office did it. We chose the census tracts we wanted to send to the government. Did we get every census tract we wanted? No. But we got a majority of what we wanted. That alone tells us we're in the driver's seat to drive this conversation. Do we have concerns about investors wanting to do whatever they want to do without, or overlooking what fits or marries that potential neighborhood? Yes, but there's certain things mayors have to do in their position as it relates to representing all people to make sure that doesn't happen.
All right, I think that's where we're going to stop. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, the one thing that I learned through this process is I don't think we have any strong black civil rights lawyers in Birmingham, Alabama anymore. I've talked to many civil rights activists, and every last one of them said we got to go outside of the city to find a lawyer. So we don't have an Arthur Shores in Birmingham anymore. We don't have a Demetrius Newton or an Orzel Billingsley and all these people. Today, our lawyers our 100% injury law and things like that. I'm not gonna knock you for getting your money, but we still have some real battles that we need to accomplish and achieve so we have equality and equity. So set aside 5% or 10%. So literally one day I'm sitting in this room, I think I spent 14 hours that day, and I went through every single letter of the Department of Justice False Claims Act. What they sent to the governor is a false claims violation. You send in misrepresentation. You're sending half-truths, or you're covering it up with half-truths. You know, you're sending, and whether it's intentional, whether it's knowingly, whether it's willfully, whether it's due with negligence or unskillfulness or carelessness. So let's speak about something that I learned about the law, because I can't find no lawyers in this city that's willing to sacrifice to win big fights. This is a big situation. My building is at 33,000 square feet. If I had the proper equity and I had the investment of opportunity zones, I could have 100% renovated 33,000 square feet of buildings. That's $200 to $300 a square foot. That's $6 million to $9 million of equity immediately. And we want to talk about tort, treble damages. This is 3 times the financial injury that I lost, but all of my neighbors lost. If I can't improve my equity, my neighbor's equity don't go up at all either. So it's not just a Brian thing, it's a community thing. But let's go back to unskillfulness, carelessness, and negligence. Randall was brand new in office on February 2nd of 2018 when he said he met with Kay Ivey. He was 90 days in office on March 6th. So there may be some unskillfulness there for him and Josh. But there's a lot of negligence in choosing not to fill out the forms properly. And so this is just for all those who are on the other side trying to find some kind of way to, do something to the whistleblower, because I'm the whistleblower. Just so you know, because of my story going viral on BBC World News, because a banking summit was called to Birmingham because of my story, even though you tried to exclude me from it, Irvin Henderson and Randall Woodfin, because I stood in the fight with no money. People would see me at the coffee shop for 14 hours. I'm not making any money, but I care about this more than I care about money. I care about our community more than I care about money. And I will sacrifice for our community. And you can see it in my tears. I care about our community. That's why I came back to Birmingham. So Randall Woodfin, Kelvin Datcher, Ed Fields, Cedric Sparks, who said I was controversial when a local news reporter met with you. When he asked, how can we help Brian? We can't help Brian. The reason why you can't help Brian is because 2 months before I showed up to Ensley, Synovus Bank and Randall and Josh created a pact together with this opportunity zone thing, and it made sure I was excluded. But how many other people were excluded with the other 28 or 20 so companies that was there? So there's an international law firm of 1,500 lawyers, and there's one with 250 lawyers in 2 of the largest cities in this country that said they'll take my case pro bono. And that is after I did all the homework. So one thing I want to share, it's 11 o'clock and I know you got to get somewhere shortly. I'm going to share what's in the back of the letter. I'm going to share what's in the back.
Now take your time, I think. I got somebody.
Okay, he's got it. So I'm going to share what's in the back of the letter.
He's doing that, ladies and gentlemen. To be fair or not necessarily political, John Hilliard, because we said your name, you are more than welcome to come to defend yourself. current Mayor Randall Woodfin. You are more than welcome to come defend yourself. Just to be fair, on not necessarily political, we are unbiased. So we try to let everybody have a voice. If you choose not to, that is up to you, but you have been asked, or you've been officially welcome to come defend yourself. If you come today, that's fine as well. But John Hilliard, I know you're in this district, but the people do have questions for you, especially on the economic development.
So something that I put in here, so we all, you know, I can't remember Frederick Douglass or whomever, but there is a solution to this. Those who have been locked out of resources intentionally by others, it's time to make us whole. You know, just imagine with the Ramsey McCormick building, instead of giving $4 million to a North Carolina developer, spread $4 million around 3 blocks. So I'm gonna go into the dynamite box, and I'm gonna thank Antonio Sperlin for his lawsuit that he filed against the City of Birmingham. In his lawsuit, there was something very, I'm gonna stop share for a second. There was something very important in there. And it says it was an amendment. I think it's 1901 Constitution or 1975 when they updated the Alabama Constitution. But any municipality can grant money to or lend money to any entity in their district if it adds to economic development. So you're telling me I can go back to Richard Arrington and he had the ability to grant struggling businesses or those businesses who were like right on the edge of going to the next level, he had the ability to grant money to help them, no different than how we granted 90 million. No different than how we granted 4 million. No different than how we granted 4 million to the, you know, several other developments. And there was one development in particular in December 2020 where City Council had just approved $13 million for the Caraway development for corporate realty. I have nothing against anybody making their money. But don't exclude, don't exploit, don't devalue us because we're African American. Because if we're gonna talk about race, if we're gonna talk about America, we gotta talk about race. If we're gonna talk about Birmingham, we gotta talk about race. But in that letter, in that article, so if you were to Google Caraway Hospital, corporate realty, you know, $13 million incentive that the city gives, Robert Simon states, in this article, I've been doing corporate development for many years. Whether a municipality gives us money or not, it never stops a deal. It never stops a deal. So right after he received the 13 million, he said, whether you gave us money or not, it wasn't gonna stop it. But our communities, if you don't give us anything, we're already locked out of banks. What you got, Shalita?
Just to be clear, corporate realty is also behind Southtown, correct? The gentrification project is going on in Southtown.
I'm not 100% sure between corporate realty and South Pace. I don't know which one is which.
Southtown redevelopment, down by the
Got it.
Southtown community.
Got it. I know it's a lot of the same entity. I just know I saw an article where sometimes I saw where it said South Pace, and then sometimes I think I saw where it said corporate realty. But they are connected. He is definitely connected, and Service First Bank is connected to both of those as well. And he actually sent in he was the first letter of support supporting Randall in the Opportunity Zone letter, which will be on my website later today. So you will see his letter of support. So I'm gonna share the screen again. So let's use Attorney General Jeff Sessions. He's from Alabama, but he signed an act, or signed, I don't know if I want to call it an act, but he signed a memorandum that says any victim that has been financially injured, we need to make sure the money and resources go to them when it comes to these lawsuits. We need to make sure banks and other people don't select their own friends through their own nonprofits. We need to make sure it goes to the victims. And the victims of everybody in Bush Hills, everybody in downtown Inslee, everybody in Wylam, everybody in Pratt City, everybody in Central Park, we are the victims. And so I just thought that was important.
Someone, Devontae Lee says, Southtown is a master developed by the Benoit Group, a black developer out of Atlanta.
Okay.
They have to check that, I guess.
Okay, I gotta check that because I learned recently that several of our black contractors, general contractors, have sold to white companies. So we gotta check that.
Yes, Julie. Kevin Datcher is welcome as well.
So here we have. I spent the next 60 pages. We're definitely not gonna go through it. Listing Department of Justice case law of example after example, whether it's $2.2 billion in false claims act violations for things like this, or whether it's Justice Department obtains unprecedented settlement from DC area bank for failure to service predominantly black areas. You know, so we got banks involved, we got public institutions involved, we got, you know, other corporate organizations involved.
I know, ladies and gentlemen, there are going to be some people that came to ask questions today. So if you get prepared, we're going to bring some people up.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling down while you're getting some people prepared.
All right.
So you'll see that I put 178 pages of time into this. It's actually probably 300 or 400 pages, but I had to, you know, shorten it.
And we'll try to keep it under maybe 5 minutes or so that way everybody, if they want to talk, can get a chance to talk, speak. But Brian, why do you think Inslee is left out on purpose?
I think we got to look at, I'm going to stop share for a second. I think we got to look at what's happening in the country. DC is the most gentrified place in the entire country. They say Seattle, but I would say DC because of the population. Mm-hmm. Atlanta is the next most gentrified place in the country. And then if you look at when I lived in Charlotte, you saw what happened. And
Detroit is on the list.
You know, all on the list. So let's get rid of, to me, gentrification is not a dirty word. Because me coming back and I'm a professional and I'm coming into Inslee, technically I am gentrifying Inslee. But I'm hoping that others who have the empathy for those in that community are the ones that also invested in that community. So we can figure out ways to also develop the others in the community. And so last thing, the other thing that I think to help with taxes and things like that, because they always say property taxes is what push people out. Whether it's community benefits agreements, whether it's tax increment financing, whether it's whatever it is, there's a lot of programs out there.
That's why I don't think gentrification, I think gentrification comes in when you push the people out. I think redevelopment is always a good thing. That's just real estate in its truest form. I think when you're pushing out people that can't afford it, to bring in certain groups of people, I think that's when we start talking about gentrification. But after is here, we're gonna let him get ready to come over. You're gonna sit right here while we do this. Yes, sir. Yeah, you can sit right here.
Okay, I didn't know if you're getting ready to speak. This is, and I'll do a quick share just so everybody can see it. We'll do it just a quick share, just so everybody can see it. So I literally screenshot every company that sent in a letter. I screenshot their letterhead. And only one that I'm concerned about, only person I'm looking for is why did Randall get mad at me when it came to Synovus Bank? You know, then I see their letter, then now I'm like, this is collusion. Ainsley was already targeted. But when you look at this, there's nothing wrong with any of them sending letters of support, but it's who supported the exclusion. So let's jump into, I'm just gonna spend maybe 30 seconds speaking about this. There is one organization that has been hired by the City of Birmingham for the last 12 plus years to represent downtown Ainsley and to represent 5 Points West. And that organization is Red Birmingham. So Red Birmingham is the only one in my mind that would know the details. Let's make sure we exclude, this area over that area over this area. They're the only ones that know that level of detail that I believe. But that's just what I believe. Because when I came to Ainsley, they had received a $338,000 contract to manage an RFP that was already written. So I'm like, this is just a waste of tax dollars. But I eventually questioned them at City Hall, and they have not, been back to Ainsley pretty much since. You got any questions, Kamal?
No.
Okay. I thought you was sitting over there to ask some questions.
Unless you just want me to mention what I did yesterday.
Let's just double check because we're on the way closing out. And I'll just see what else is out there I think is critical. I'm gonna jump back into, it's not sharing right now, but I'm gonna. So just remember, my building was appraised at $0. Yeah, just remember, my buildings were appraised at $0. I just shared it on the screen. Just remember, this car wash was compared to my building, and this is what Randall Woodfin and his staff got mad at me for speaking up about. So, but all I cared about was downtown Ainsley. But you can see here on this map, you can see how all of a sudden just carved this area out. So you can see exactly, it just looks like it's carved out. But I'll be sharing more details later today. Anything else?
Just wanted to mention the complaint yesterday. Is that okay?
Let me check one thing, because that'll probably switch into a different subject.
Yeah.
Let me share one thing. We got a few people in the room, so I definitely thank you for coming out. And there's so many documents, there's so many things that I could share or others could share. But all of it is probably sent to all of the key entities.
I got one thing, Brian.
What you got?
I just want to mention, I believe that the only reason that the T.C. Wyndham on 8th Avenue and the John Nixon Tuxedo Junction building were left in the opportunity zone is because they would not dare leave off two of the oldest black historic structures in Jefferson County. And I believe that's the only reason they did not just overlook us two.
Yeah,
But,
my thought is because you are in Smithfield, and because Smithfield is adjacent to downtown, I believe it was going to automatically be attached. They got to select one area. It's kind of like we got to select something. And I just think Smithfield was there, and then Legion Field was right there in the middle.
I think also it was intended to keep me quiet. And I'm disappointed because Randall Woodfin is my alpha fraternity brother. I helped him. I had wishes for a new generation. I didn't necessarily have anything against Mr. Bell. I just wanted to see a new generation take hand of the baton and lead. And I've been totally disappointed. I am deeply hurt like you, but probably not as bad as you.
So I'm gonna close on something a little different, and I'm gonna speak about a.
Brian, can I ask a question?
What you got?
Because I think. Brother, come on.
You let him get closer. So Richard's getting ready to ask a question.
You have, I think, 4 people in the room running for council. You have a mayor candidate. What can we do to help you? Because, when we get there, me and you've talked before, we have to stop this, but what can we do to help you?
All right, so I think I'm just getting ready to share a screen. That's all. So what can people do to help?
And what can we do? Like we're running right now. We get in office. We see this. You know, I've already known the story, but what can we do when we get in the positions to help you? Because this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So let's take me out of it.
Right.
You know, I'm a single individual of over 100 buildings owners over here in Ensley.
Right.
So let's also step back to what happened 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, one of the oldest owner in Ensley of 114 years, which is a white guy, Jimmy Crane. We got a great relationship. And I'm mentioning that because we got to talk about race, because we're in Birmingham. And he said, Brian, my taxes went up $1,100 to $8,000 in just 2 years. So I said, this is perfect timing. So I'm going to study my taxes and I'll study yours too and see if we got any comps in the area, etc. So I studied the whole area, looked at over 40 different properties in downtown Ensley. And it was like 15 of them that they like randomly selected. And we went up 500%, 600%, 300%. So we're dealing with not just an economic issue with redlining and with redlining and opportunity zones, we're also dealing with inflated property taxes. So let's step back to yesterday. Yesterday, it took 2 years to get to this point, or 3 years total. But the head of Board of Equalization meets me in my buildings yesterday. The head tax assessor of Jefferson County meets me in my buildings yesterday. They walk the properties. And there's no way your buildings could be worth zero. If you go back to my hearing just a few days earlier, this is systemic racism in the phone conversation. So we're dealing with inflated property taxes, redlining from banks. We're dealing with no support from a City of Birmingham. But it's not just the current administration. This is 40 years, or 42 years of us not developing. So we have to also hold ourselves accountable. So I say, as a city councilman, use your ability to investigate anything the mayor does, or anything that any department does. Use that ability. But the most important thing is never lose your integrity. And regardless if somebody give you $1 million or not, right is right. And those who've been left out for 150 years in Birmingham. You know, so there's ways to be an advocate for me, but remember what Antonio Sperlin wrote when he sued the city. You can grant money to any corporation or entity that helps with economic development in the area. This has been on the law, on the books for a long time. So if they wanted to help, they could. But this go round, if you win, you all are gonna be dealing with the settlement related to my lawsuit. And, you know, I'm open, because I care more about moving our community forward than bankrupting the city. So I'm open. But I also know what treble damages mean and tort mean when it's unskillfulness and negligence and carelessness by Josh Carpenter or Randall Woodfin. So, you know, and whoever else is involved. So I'm just gonna kind of close out on a few things. So,
you have a question?
You got a question? What's the question?
Well, it was similar to Richard's question. As an elected official, what would they do? But what would we as citizens do to get the word out about that?
You know, so one thing that I learned this week, when I shared this go round, a lot of people shared it. So that's one way. But, and we all know somebody, because it's about right. Somebody knows a Terry Sewell. Somebody knows someone and you know, down at the state level. Someone knows someone at the county. Someone knows someone on the state appraisal board. The state appraisal board agreed to covering up for Synovus Bank and C.B. Richard Ellis. You know, if the state appraisal board were to change their determination, they would take all the potential liability away from the county, because the county has to make a decision now. Are you going to lower his taxes to 0 and go with what the state says, or are you going to say my building have value? And then now it's a conundrum. So the state can correct it. They can correct it if they choose. So it's all about who can you connect somebody to. But once again, it's not just Brian, because Felicia, 1 block away, went to a bank and they said, I know you got 80% of capital, but we can't give you 20%. You know, Westside Lounge, your building have no value, and that's just a block away. You know, Monumental Construction, even though William Robertson passed away, that bank would not let them refinance. So when you're in a situation like that, that's how they take your properties. But they were able to, you know, move forward, and unfortunately he passed away and was able to, you know, stay there. But, you know, so it's a lot. But when it comes to someone like a Kelvin Datcher and a Ed Fields and everybody else in that city hall, I'm not your enemy, man. You invest in me, you gonna look good, because I'm gonna make a lot of people look good around me. You invest in my neighbors, they gonna look good, and it's gonna make other people look good around me. When you intentionally exclude us, this is where accountability comes in at. You know, so we, you know, I will use Gwen Webb. She's not here today, but she said, Brian, let me know when you're ready for us to march on City Hall. But I'm gonna mention, so as I close,
But are you planning that, a march?
no, and I'm gonna tell you why. And I'm gonna tell you why. So you should be able to, are they able to see the screen up there? So in 1976, the National Urban League published this pamphlet called Economic Progress of Blacks After 200 Years. In 1976, many blacks have made it mainstream, but this progress could present the greatest pitfall. We could become victims of the great illusion. We could seriously overestimate our gains. We could become victims of a great fixation. We could continue to fight battles we have already won, and battles which are no longer worth fighting, or fight worthy battles with obsolete tools. So let's go back, let's talk about obsolete tools. The reason why that worked in Birmingham was because of a Bull Connor and fire hoses and bringing the national attention. It did not work in Fort Valley, I think it's Fort Valley or Albany, Georgia. I can't remember what the place was in Georgia. Albany, Georgia. It didn't work because they didn't do that. So that is an obsolete tool, but the legal system is not an obsolete tool. Worse yet, we can find ourselves split at the seams by a class struggle within our own ranks. So in 1963, we had no political city councilmen, mayors, or whatever in this region. Today, we have created a new class. That new class is no longer the clergy as the leader of the community. It's now the politician. But that politician doesn't have the same, capacity of that clergy. But we created a new class. We also created another class when we finally got access to mainstream corporate America. So this is important. And I'm going back in the dynamite box, and I'm gonna pull this book out. It's by Richard Arrington. Well, it was written about Richard Arrington. No, here it goes. So I know some can't see this, but others are able to see it. So it's a book called Back to Birmingham. It's a book called Back to Birmingham, and it's written about Richard Arrington. In 1973, Richard Arrington had to file a formal complaint with the NAACP with the Department of Justice. When we learn our history, we can use the Justice Department to move us forward. That was to get us to move forward with affirmative action. You know, actually, I think we need to go back and look at a lot of different things.
I guess I was thinking in the sense of how do you let our neighbors know that this is happening?
So,
Via newsletter, for example, a simple page that has a few facts on it that we could pass out in our neighborhood to say, did you know this?
yeah, I'm stretched in. I just want to be honest. I'm stretched in.
You what?
I'm stretched in, but others can write newsletters. Others can, you know, share word of mouth. Others can email. Others can share. Because it's our community. It's not Brian's community.
The people are answering, all them answering. You know, people don't know. You know, I do the best I can to expose everything. But, you know, we got to get, this is our community. We got to get it to our people and in our community. We got a black DA that's from over there on Avenue I by Graffield. I mean, we got leaders and answers. So this people got to learn how to expose and not to be afraid to expose these people.
Plus, my thinking, if it's a simple sheet with a few facts, we copy it, we get out, and we talk to people on the street about, did you know this was happening? Because people look at social media, they may not even watch the whole thing. They have something in their hands, because I found that works best for me when I was dealing with the Franklin Henry building and all the money they wanted to give them down in the city. So the Birmingham News refused to print anything about what I was saying, so I made up my own newsletter, and I put 30 copies around every month in the neighborhood. I walked the streets and put them on cards and went to doors and told people what was happening, because people really don't know.
People don't know. They said knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you got a question, Kamal?
Yes, sir. It was the former mayor, Coleman Young, who said that crime is the ultimate manifestation of economic exploitation. You showed me a few days ago, people need to really know how long this onslaught has been going on us and how evil and how much greed the Birmingham City Fathers and these corporations, this corporate community that is backing Randall Woodfin and people that will exploit their own people, starting with the University of Alabama, Colonel Lay, that's Confederate Colonel Lay, Colonel Sloss, that's Sloss Furnace, and all that controlled by Captain Sloss Crenshaw.
Can you see that?
We need to understand.
Can you see it on the screen?
That this onslaught, it has been long going with these Confederates in this state and all over the Southeast, and it is continuing. Will you show them just what they did in terms of black contractors wanting just inclusion? Show them the disparity, the difference. Can you pull that up?
Yeah. So just to repeat that. So in 1976, African Americans, or it said minority contractors at that time. So minority could have been broad. $476 went to minority contracts in Birmingham, and $20 million went to white contractors. That was 1976. And so if we was to, it's very important that whoever becomes a mayor, whoever becomes a city councilman, we need to reactivate a true disparity study. Randall, under his administration, invited a friend from Morehouse to do a disparity study. I don't think that's the right way to do it.
He ran on it too.
Yeah, I don't think that's the right way to do it. And it needs to be a third party to properly do it. Those results have not been released. So now that you mentioned crime, I just want people to see what we sacrifice to be in our communities.
And let them know that was a Birmingham News article in '76 that showed, and by the way, those people and that kind of greed, you're talking about $600 and some that blacks got, and white contractors and white building firms got $20 million. They sued as soon as blacks got chunked.
We're gonna talk about race in a second. I think Lonnie is gone, so I'm gonna break down some race stuff for a second. Because recently, the other day, I talked about the Confederate monument, and I want to break that down. So I'm gonna share this. Most people can see this. Just hear it.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I'm gonna go back because this is the type of stuff that I've seen on my cameras. That club, or when that happened, was closed immediately afterwards. But we have to understand, when that article came out a few months ago, it was 446 murders in a 4-year period in Birmingham. So that means it's 446 of those, plus those who were not killed, and plus those who were not shot. You know, just understand that. You know, so when we intentionally come into our community, we doing it so we can show people another way. So I'm gonna stop share for a second, and we about to have a quick, real good conversation about history. So for those who don't know what a dynamite box looks like, on the front it says DuPont Dynamite. And in the back it says highly explosives. So articles or books that I think are critical I put in here. You know, we got something called the Killing Years. It's about 2012. So our crime didn't just start. All right? There's more stuff related to political equality. So in 1871, African Americans, or at that time Negroes, knew that they could negotiate with a former Confederate colonel. And they negotiated with him with their votes, and they got Tuskegee University. So we got to figure out how to negotiate and use our votes. It's not so much about whether this person was this and that, it's the art of compromise. So I'm gonna jump into something that a lot of people may not, they ain't ready for this.
Right. Question.
Go, what you got?
Okay. Don't you think we need to start picking our politicians who have black agendas? If you look at from 1979 when Erica came in up to now, what have they done for black people? They had no black agendas. They were just as racist towards their people as the former racist white boys who came in prior to that. So when we look at history, we got to do a hardcore history with our own people. There's no candidate running right now, not one of them. Maybe one Hill seem to have a little intelligence about what you're talking about, but there's nobody in all 9 districts have no black agenda. I allocate 80% of them on their social media. Ask one simple question: what is your black agenda? They run like roaches.
All right. So I'm one of those few people that I'm not afraid to say black, African American, Negro, whatever, and speaking publicly. So I'm gonna respond to your question.
One more thing.
Okay.
It's true. When you're talking about the disparity studies, why are we talking about disparity studies?
Why are we talking about disparity studies? So
once you put your people in from 1979 up to why are you speaking right here? 99% he can account for. 99%, 0.9% have went to whites. So we shouldn't be talking about sharing nothing.
That's right.
Not a dime.
No.
The opportunity zone is over $1 billion. 1998, it was already up to $7 billion. So now where we at right now? 23 years later, we talking about doing disparity studies and talking about sharing a dime with any white boy? None.
Nobody else.
We shouldn't share a penny.
Nobody.
Not white, no Mexican, no white woman, not a dime.
I'm gonna respond. And I'm gonna look at it from a position of a mayor, a position of a city councilman, position of any politician. If we choose exactly that, that reverse discrimination lawsuit is much bigger. That's where we had a conversation about equity. We gotta say, all right, we know we've given you all this money for this many years, but I can't as a city council vote to give you this money this year. You know, it still has to be legal. They created the legal system, and it evolved. And there's a reason why there's never been another Maynard Jackson.
Yes.
Because it evolved. So we still have to figure out how to use those things. Like, you can grant money to any corporation or entity in a state. That is not racially motivated. It says any. So that's where, you know, you probably can choose some of that. Now, there's probably other ways. So let's go deep into race for a second. So we went into the dynamite box, is what I call it. And I'm going to pull out the Confederate flag. And everybody knows me, they know I love history. I'm a protector of history. Whether it's Confederate history, I don't want us to lose it on paper, but it may not need to be at a park. It needs to be in its proper place in a museum or something like that. But if we're gonna talk about America, which actually, if you move that thing around, it says, I am race, all the exact words. I am race, all the exact letters. I am race, if you move them letters around, it's spelled America. So, I'm just as careful about this Confederate flag because I don't want to lose it. Because I'm naturally, I love history. I want to be able to teach from this. You know, but I know for a fact, when I looked into the memorial of the Confederacy that the Birmingham News put out in 1961, I know a lot of these people didn't want me to win, and they didn't want a lot of us others to win. But I'm not about to fight your hate with my hate. I don't have time. My life's too short, your life's too short. You know, so we gotta figure out how to make sure we don't exclude our own. And then those who wanna help us, regardless of race, I'm all for them. But our own is our biggest problem. What you got?
Good afternoon. I want to commend Brother Brown on his impeccable research and effort he was made and actually get this information out to the public, because this is long overdue and it's needed for the community. I want to say a question to you, Brother Brown, that people in the business community have that reached out to you, and this is very important. Are people in the business community, do you have any people in the business community have worked against your efforts in order to get this information out? And are they really trying to make some type of progress in terms of trying to build up the Israel community and point out the incompetence and, I said, efforts of the city council going against what you're trying to get accomplished right now with your business and your buildings and other businesses throughout the Israel community?
So let's just be honest. I'm 3 years later, and this room look exactly like it looked 3 years ago. I can't renovate my roofs because I don't have any money, because of a lie on the loan, misrepresentation. No one has stood up for me anywhere to get me resources related to economic injustice. Now, when it comes to those in the business community, it took about 2.5 years to get the Ensley Merchants Association and Business Alliance back together, and we're communicating more. So when I shared the property tax stuff, it was like about 8 of them, I think, filed protests. You know, so we're working together more. It was a neighbor who called me when that city inspector is showing up at 7 a.m. You know, so just imagine a warrant is sent to this building for blight. So you're gonna arrest Brian or the previous owner for blight? So that is City Hall. But in this community, even when we had the BOLD grant funding, I had free money for facade grants, free money for marketing, and I guarantee 30% of the owners said I don't want anything from the City of Birmingham. And that has nothing to do with a Randall. That has, you know, may have something to do with multiple generations of mayors or city councils. So we have abandoned our own. And we just got to get back to balance. But we as voters get to hold people accountable. So we are communicating more as a business alliance, but we still got a long ways to go. And I'm hoping that others, you know, do their part, you know, because I'm all for it.
And black people got to value your own communities. Have to.
Why you keep saying stuff, man? So all right. Oh, this is one last thing. What you got?
Related to the previous question, I wanted to find out when it comes to citizens within this district and neighborhood association officials, have you had much support from them? Because I know oftentimes they get caught up into the political minutia of having to be manipulated by either the mayor or the council or the council for this district. So have you had any support in your efforts in receiving and or gathering information as relates to this case from neighborhood officers, so that when you do have a final product like you do of information, can you send it to them, send it to citizens to gain support for your efforts?
Have I gotten, you know, support essentially from, you know, local leaders? Essentially, I'm just summarizing. So John Hilliard is my district councilman. Sheila Tyson is the county commissioner. You know, because I have not seen any effort at all from the state side, I don't even know who it is. You know, I know I've looked it up before once or twice, but also I know history. And I'm like, I'm not about to go run down somebody that's not actively doing the work, because I did that a lot. So with John Hilliard, you know, you use him for example. He loves history, our history, just like I love our history. But for some reason, he chose to abandon me, just like Cedric Sparks, Randall, and others.
Fraternity.
They're all in the same fraternity?
We all alphas, the fraternity. But at Randall Woodfin, we need to pull his alpha card and his black card.
Yeah.
He is a traitor.
Hold on.
He is a Benedict
Hold on.
Trojan horse traitor.
Hold on. I didn't catch that part. All fraternity brothers, whether they, and I'm an Omega. I'm hoping you ain't that petty. Because I'm hoping you're not that petty. But no, I'm not necessarily saying Randall. I know he's that petty, and I'm saying it publicly.
But not just that. You got a posse in there, that Morehouse posse. You got the fraternity posse, but it's more the Morehouse and the clique of that those elitists want to be than anything else. That's what the problem is.
So
they don't want to share the power with nobody else.
Let me read this real quick, because this is information that supports your cause, but many citizens don't know. The city was divided into 9 districts to preserve the minority, in parentheses, white representation, following a court order in Yarborough et al. V. City of Birmingham in 1989. Prior to that, the councilors were elected at large. What that means is, prior to 1989, if you lived in this district, your vote for the city councilor was included in District 1, 2, all the way through 8. But with white flight, the minority white constituents of this city, to maintain control, went to the 9-district structure so that they can maintain control. And if you notice, all of the gentrification has primarily gone up in Abbott's district, in Hunter's district, and in O'Quinn's district. And everything else is left to be poor. So we have to educate our people on how to become politically intellectual. Because that's why the speech by Malcolm X is still relevant. The ballot of the bullet. Black people at the local level as well as the national level. We always are that block of votes that determines an election. But we still at the bottom. Whether it's at the city level, the county level, the state level, or the national level. We still haven't become politically astute enough to make politics work for us.
Because we put it in the wrong people.
Exactly.
So you're talking about all 9 districts. I just totally disagree with it. Because now we got a black flag. Let's be real with each other. Let's be very real. We in 2021, 1963. 1964 when he did that. It's a different time. You give the 3-cent raise to black people, they out of here. They're gonna find the whitest communities they're gonna stay in. So let's tell the truth. All over black America.
That's on us. That's on us, because we always running them. They ain't never running
That's what I'm saying.
Never running us.
That's us.
When we integrated, think about it.
It was
When we
done.
integrated,
It was done.
no, not one student from Ensley, white student from Ensley, came to J.O. Not one white student from Phillips came to Paul.
So let's do a timeout for a second.
We got to make sure that we educate our people on becoming politically and economically powerful. That's the only way we're going to make the change, so that we can make sure that we have the right people in office. I'm the only candidate. Mayor level, city council level, school board level, talking about black agenda. Because I've been affected by the same, actually even worse than Brian. I'm the one that went to jail for fighting for black entrepreneurs and black students in Birmingham City Schools while he was on the school board, sitting up there wasting millions of dollars on the Ed Richardson transportation bill.
I'm gonna try to get this thing closed out, because we've been at it for a little while. But I think the most important thing that the last thing, I'm truly gonna close on this. Under Josh Carpenter, and anybody can Google it, you can just Google his CV resume today. It's gonna pop up on Brookings Institute till they take it down. But I might put it on my website. Because on the LinkedIn, on that resume, and his when he left office, he said his accomplishments was creating Birmingham Promise, Birmingham Strong, Prosper Birmingham. So the Brookings Institute, Andre Perry comes to interview me in 2018, 2019. And out of every African American in the entire country, he only featured me in Buy Back the Block, chapter 3. In there he said, Brian is right, the city is wrong, but we still gotta figure out how to work together. Right. So I'm gonna say that's true. But the Brookings Institute is where Josh Carpenter went 30 days after he left office. I'm not for setting up programs with tax dollars and then going to work for the programs that you set up for tax dollars. Birmingham Promise. I hope Rachel Harmon knows what predicament they put you in. You work under an economic development office, talent development under Josh Carpenter. First of all, why is Birmingham Promise not creating a division of youth services? Why are they creating economic development? But then you become the executive director of Birmingham Promise. So we're taking city tax dollars and we're planning third-party organization for ourselves. I'm hoping, that it's not illegal, but I'm 100% positive that it's illegal. And Prosper Birmingham is by far a repeat of the Birmingham Construction Industry Authority. It's by far, but it's worse. So in 1976, Birmingham was sued for reverse discrimination after we received our first contract. In
Look at that.
Hold on. It's actually the first one. I put it up there. and then I'll hold on. I thought I was gonna try to make it bigger. Where we at? Got a whole bunch of stuff up here. So I know it's at the front. So, well, you can see it in the back.
Go up. See slides outside.
Yeah, but if I do that, it's jumping back over here for some reason. So, you can see in 1976, for those who are able to see it, we received $476 or $20 million. But the next year, later that year, we were sued by the same people who are still on the board today.
Look at the name.
This Birmingham Post-Herald. Yeah, you can go look it up at the Birmingham Public Library, but I don't mind, because I'm going to put a lot of stuff up later today. So let's go back to Prosper Birmingham.
Name of evil.
Let's go back to Prosper Birmingham. J.W. Carpenter, Josh Carpenter creates this, according to his resume, according to when he leaves Birmingham. And then they go find a teacher. Teach for America individual, Josh Carpenter Teach for America as well, to lead African Americans out of what the Brookings Institute said was the worst economic conditions for black businesses in the entire country in 2018. So why would you let someone who is a teacher, non-economic development person, Randall Woodfin, lead us out of the worst economic conditions? That right there is blasphemy on every level. And there are several people on that board who have always been selected to be on boards. We got to correct these wrongs. So I just want to, thank everyone. It's a whole lot. I know I'm going to compile some stuff and put some stuff together, but we got some real violations here, and there's a reason why I sent the 177-page document.
Who chose those?
Huh?
Who chose these white construction companies?
Who chose them?
Yeah. Who placed them on the board?
No, so in 1989, so one thing I'm gonna give credit to Richard Arrington for, and I'm gonna give him credit for his first 8 years. His first 8 years, he was fighting the system. From 1977 to 1989, they were suing the city of Birmingham. And then a consent decree was created in 1989, and BCIA was created. Today, we don't have almost no black contractors. Almost none. But once again, it's like, let's put someone who benefited off of excluding us over us. That don't make sense.
What was the mission of BCIA?
So, mission, not to know the exact words, but the mission was how to help black contractors, well, we're going to use the right word they use, how to help black contractors get contracts. They have done it, but they have not been able to overcome the system that was created around them.
Okay, so what you're saying is, these white companies sued for reverse discrimination
Immediately.
when black contractors were being discriminated against. And now they are currently on boards and still getting the majority, if not 100% of those contracts. But we had a debate last night where we had one candidate asking another candidate why he sued the city for discrimination and exclusion.
So let's use the word proper. You said they are currently, from 1990 to 2021, they've been on the board.
We have to have a mayor. The next mayor.
Yeah. So let's go and close it out. We thought it was going to be 45 minutes, an hour. Obviously, there's a lot that we could talk about. And obviously, I know the Randall Woodfins and the Kelvin Dashes of the world. Once again, y'all are not my enemy. It's choices that you're making that's hurting our community. That's all I care about. You are excluding me, you're excluding others. It's those choices. Just correct that. Just correct that, and we can move forward. But right now, there's some legal stuff that's got to be taking place too. And so we're gonna close out. You NMP, so go from there. Let him come out. Let him close out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Birmingham is the civil rights capital and conscience of the world. You just heard a young gentleman say that if his buildings were up and running, he could have $6 million to $9 million in equity. And you know the only thing in America that really matters is land and black people behind bars. They all go inside. You had a city councilor that's over in this district where he is, that's over economic development, that act like he didn't know that this was going on.
That's right.
John Hilliard, you knew, you're over it, but none of your districts are on this list that he showed you. Randall Woodfin, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Let's use your words. Shame on you for what you do. Not necessarily political, what's created, and will always be a source to where it engages the people, control our narrative, and empower the people. Control our narrative is what I've always stated, I've always looked at and focused on, because around the world, we were monkeys at one time. Over in the French area, they thought we had tails. We were the worst people in the world looking at rap music. Around the world, they think that we're some of the worst people, but they all want to be us. You have a 74% black city that is purposely stopping financial gains to black business owners. $22.5 million went to minority business, but only 2% went to black business. Black. People of color means nothing to me. No disrespect to you, but I say black. We're a black city. When you go to Hoover, their representation mirrors them. I think they have one black city council person, and that's Derek Murphy. What does that mean? We shouldn't have to apologize because Atlanta saw the vision and they moved forward. Without a vision, the people perish. We got to sit back and focus on this thing now and saying, what have you all done? There's an election going on. And I've said this before, this is one of the most dangerous city councils we have ever had in the city of Birmingham. Not because they all get along with the mayor, because they get along with the mayor. They don't fight this mayor for absolutely nothing. They created a budget and then changed one thing on the budget when your job is to advocate, legislate, pass a balanced budget. Some of those same council people got up and left when it was time to pass a budget. And they came back when it was time to furlough. $5,000 is a great amount of money. Can't lie. But imagine if you would have furloughed the people that you wanted to furlough when the government was giving $900, nothing they've ever done in history. They were giving people $900 a week. Now, if you'd have furloughed them during that time, then made a plan and brought them back, because you was gonna bring them back anyway because it's election season. During the black community, you're gonna cut some grass, you're gonna pave some roads, you're gonna find some money for the neighborhood, neighborhood presidents and preachers. And then you're gonna find some money for the pandemic. I told y'all that. I told you it was gonna become this. You had a $65 million potential shortfall. Then all of a sudden you present the biggest, largest budget Birmingham has ever seen. You zero, how do you get a president of a school board? 2 presidents of a school board. Wadeen Alexander, Randall Woodfin was the presidents. And one of them even, one sat on the library board. They both voted 0 out for the school system. They closed libraries. From slavery to 2021, you got people who can't read, and you're going to close the libraries. Well, somebody said, well, we don't use libraries. Okay, some do, because you might don't do crack, but they got crack counseling still out here. Sounds crazy, right? Just because you don't utilize them, that doesn't mean children. That might be a safe haven for children. Because whether you know it or not, in Birmingham, there are children who go home and don't have anything to eat until they come back. There are children that actually get beat at home like a boxing bag. Sometimes it's a safe haven. So you don't utilize something don't mean other people don't. Yeah, you can Google all you want, but the pandemic showed you just how far technology-wise we're behind. But you will push a concert. Right now we have community center closed, but you're pushing concerts. Grind rice has been the topic of just about every forum because people want to utilize it and get cool points with the black people. But how in the world, we're all sitting in this building. I'm disgusted, Brian, because this little farmhouse you had that we're sitting in right now is just deplorable. I'm sorry. You got lights and TVs and electronic stuff in here. Just deplorable, Brian. We in the country, man. It's hot outside. We got air in here. And yeah, 15 miles away when you're local, normally you do 4 miles.
It doesn't matter if you do 3 or 2 or 1.
3 or 2. We see you, Birmingham. You're similar, and as I close, Donald Trump would do stuff like pay porn stars not to say nothing, and then tell the American people, I didn't do that. Then he would did a pandemic, a global pandemic, and said it's a Democratic hoax, but I didn't do that. Randall Woodfin, you're doing stuff, and then you're saying, I didn't do that. We see us seeing you, and you didn't do this. You in Detroit, you're on film, saying you chose where you want to build. John Hilliard, you're on film saying we're a global business now because of Birmingport. I'm not against any one of you because I don't care about either one of you. I'm not in your district. I'm in District 7. I'm worried about the people flooding. I'm worried about the gunfire. I'm worried about the lack of police presence. I'm worried about the lack of opportunity. I'm worried about the lack of anything on the west side of town. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, and this is my last word. On the south side, you can drink in the middle of the street. On 20th Street, you can sit down and eat pizza. And at the bistro, you can sit in the pretty little paved colored streets. But on the west and on the east side, you got bloodshed in the streets and you care nothing about it. No grocery stores, none of this stuff that you happen. But yet, it's pleasant in Avondale. It's pleasant on the south side. Woodlawn, you got $50,000 houses on one side, you got $200,000 houses on the other side. We don't see it. We don't see it. We just gonna go blindly into the night. I'm Lonnie Malone. I had a council person say, whatever they're gonna use everything in their power to make sure Lonnie Malone never become a council person because he can't be controlled. August 24th, District 7 will have another city council because you are not my God. And you know who you are, and I really want to say something, but this is not the day. Brian Rice, I applaud you, brother. Because when the alphas won't do, the Q's will. Not necessarily political across the social media platform, except for Twitter is that necessarily not. We'll be on tomorrow. We have another political event we're just going to be broadcasting for the people. But if you would like to get your message out, it is free. If you would like to get your political message out, it is free. If you would like to get your business, anything out to the people, not necessarily political, at gmail.com. Thank you all and have a great day.
Protect your peace, Brian.
Brian, why the hell is some good shit so damn?
We're going to get ready to take.
No, we'll say, we'll put that on Nick. We'll put that on Nick.
We don't want to live there.
Well, yes, we do want to live there, but we can't afford that no more.
Talking about, but look how long we
A guy, he's not white, he's working in Metro PCS, open car there, he's sort of.
Speaking of workforce development, I understand that you've got an addition to your team.
Yes, I think it's important, y'all, that I steal talent. I mean, in addition to stealing talent, I think it's important that you find a way to leverage your talent that you know exists in your home city. So either by finding a way to bring talent home or talent right here in the city, bringing it to City Hall. And I'm very excited to say one of our co-chairs, Dr. Josh Carpenter, will be leading our economic development efforts for the City of Birmingham. But I think what's cool with that also is Ms. Adams, who is his co-chair, was the former economic development director for the City of Birmingham. So I've been excited about you, Fred, and Dr. Herring, as well as you, Detective Patterson, and my friend Herschel, but I'm very excited to hear what they have to say.
I think the geography is really important. There's been a lot of conversation around the federal opportunity zones, tax shelter, basically. And there are places, that we visit daily where you would not think that they would be someplace that would need any incentive for investment, but that yet they're included in the opportunity zone. So, I would be, I will be paying attention to the geography just to make sure that this, is directed where it's most needed. This is something that's intended to, as it's named, create new markets. And, historically there's been parts of the city of Birmingham that haven't gotten the same level of investment. And, we want to make sure that we don't go down that same path again.
Many years ago, I had hearings down at City Hall about redlining in neighborhoods. And we took a situation where we took two census tracts. One was a predominantly black census tract, which was in the Fountain Heights area, and compared it to another census tract that was predominantly white, that was over in the, I think it was the Crestline area. See the Crestline Avondale. And then we overlaid that because it was right at the time that they had community resource, or the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, that was passed. And they had to file so much information with the banking institution. We had two neighborhoods that had the exact same average income, the exact same price of the houses, but those homes that were over in the predominantly white area the loan rate was much higher than it was for those homes in the predominantly black area. When you look at loans to fix your house up, construction loans, and things of that nature, those white communities were receiving about 4 or 5 times the rate of money to reinvest in their homes, reinvest in their business, reinvest in their communities than it was. But when you talk to the bank, they said, well, nobody's going to invest in those areas. We're saying people already live in the Fountain Heights area. People are already trying to keep their homes up, but they can't get loans to do that. And we were able to change some people's minds. But what I'm hearing now, it seems like that concept is still there of redlining an area based on appraisal, based on whatever, that you're not able to get the investment dollars, besides your own personal dollars, because once you buy a property, you have to have all kinds of construction loans and other type of monies to come in and fix it up the way you want to have it. And I would imagine having voices in other places to also speak up for you, that's also what you're looking for. If this building is completely renovated, what's going to happen? The tax is going to go up. And those tax dollars go into the coffers of city, county, and state government for us to reinvest it back into the community. So whatever we can do to make you strong, it only helps everybody else. And so we've got to look at how we can work together. And I think you're on the right track when you say you already organized the rest of the merchants and owners in this area so that they can speak with one voice.
We want to have a real in-depth conversation about injustice. Or our guest is here with us tonight. His name is Brian Rice. He is the president of the Inslee Business Alliance. I'm so excited for him because I was telling him he's been featured on BBC, which is an international syndicated program, and it was about the fact that he and some of the others, but for himself, owns about, I don't know, maybe 5 or more businesses in the Inslee area, and his property valued is at 0. Can you believe that? Property value, 0.
Councilor Wood?
Yeah, this is a little bit slightly off topic. Just a question for you. How do you think the banks respond to this, just in terms of how they value that area? You know, right now, I guess the area may be devalued, quote unquote. Do you think the banks kind of see what we're doing and begin to add value to the area?
Yeah, I think we see ourselves, and we've had a conversation, particularly with Brian, who's here today. We've had a conversation about, this isn't just there's been a single story told about Inslee that's been negative. And one of the things that we're trying to do is turn the focus on its assets. I haven't spoken in a room yet that believed that Inslee had created jobs in the last 5 years. And it's because there's been a negative stereotype that's been allowed to define that neighborhood for a very long time. Our goal is to actually sit down with property owners and banks and help convene meetings and say, this is a focus area for us because it should be. If we want to be the type of city that transcends the post-industrial economy, there's got to be a place for Inslee in it. In fact, it needs to be thriving. And so we think we can help attract investment from banks here by saying, here's a tangible $4 million city investment, but also it's wrapped in the opportunity through CDBG funding and through BOLD funding and through other aspects to actually build more momentum into that community. So we can begin to craft a story about what it looks like to invest in the future as opposed to kind of just dwelling on its past.
And I've met with Mr. Rice several times. And as you know, what was mentioned earlier is I'm the founder of the largest CRA organization in the world, and Bob Dickerson is the chair of that entity. So what we have promised Mr. Rice is we will convene a meeting here in Birmingham, and actually it'll be in Inslee. And we will have the comptroller of the currency, we'll have the FDIC, and we'll have the Federal Reserve. In fact, we'll ask the Federal Reserve to be the host of the meeting, and you have your local Federal Reserve office here. We will then invite each of the banks that's in this market to come to that meeting. And basically what we will do there is we will lay out how all of the regulators, all 3 of them, have identified that you can take an area and draw a green line around it and call it your redevelopment area. The loans and investments you make there will not be judged against the rest of your portfolio as a bank. So that gives them more creativity, if you will, as to how they can work in the redevelopment area. But the beauty of having the regulators in the room is that no one from the bank can say that we're wrong. The regulators will say, yeah, you can do that. And so we think that'll put a lot of strength into that situation. I have personal relationships with the leadership at Regions. I have personal relationships with the CEO of BB&T. I guarantee you we're going to solve that problem.
I appreciate that because I recognize a lot of the property owners in the area, and I think that like I said, it would just be a real disservice if they didn't have opportunity to benefit, through the investment the city's making, so.
It's un-American.
Right, so.
It's un-American.
That was my last question.
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to make a statement if I could. I did attend the NCRC meeting last year or the beginning of this year. So I know that is the best group to go out if you're trying to talk with bankers and things like that. So I'm very encouraged by having your presence and the fact that we will be marketing this. So if there's any question about the banking industry and their the way we market this to them, then I think it's great to have the NCRC on our side with that.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that. And to their credit, the banks want to know what we're doing and where it provides an opportunity for them. They're not going to be drug into this meeting. They want to have this meeting as well. It's going to be win-win for the banks and win-win for the community. Only way we can do it.
Councilor Wood?
Yeah, this is a little bit slightly off topic. Just a question for you. How do you think the banks respond to this, just in terms of how they value that area? Right now, I guess the area may be devalued, quote unquote. Do you think the banks kind of see what we're doing and begin to add value to the area?
Yeah, I think we see ourselves, and we've had a conversation, particularly with Brian, who's here today, and it's because there's been a negative stereotype that's been allowed to define that neighborhood for a very long time. Our goal is to actually sit down with property owners and banks and help convene meetings and say, this is a focus area for us because it should be. If we want to be the type of city that transcends the post-industrial economy, there's got to be a place for Inslee in it. In fact, it needs to be thriving.
And I've met with Mr. Rice several times. And as you know, what was mentioned earlier is I'm the founder of the largest CRA organization in the world, and Bob Dickerson is the chair of that entity. So what we have promised Mr. Rice is we will convene a meeting here in Birmingham, and actually it'll be in Inslee, and we will have the comptroller of the currency, we'll have the FDIC, and we'll have the Federal Reserve. In fact, we'll ask the Federal Reserve to be the host of the meeting, and you have your local Federal Reserve office here. We will then invite each of the banks that's in this market to come to that meeting. And basically what we will do there is we will lay out how all of the regulators, all three of them, have identified that you can take an area and draw a green line around it and call it your redevelopment area. The loans and investments you make there will not be judged against the rest of your portfolio as a bank. So that gives them more creativity, if you will, as to how they can work in the redevelopment area. But the beauty of having the regulators in the room is that no one from the bank can say that we're wrong. The regulators will say, yeah, you can do that. And so we think that'll put a lot of strength into that situation. I have personal relationships with the leadership at Regions. I have personal relationships with the CEO of BB&T. I guarantee you we're going to solve that problem.
I appreciate that. I recognize a lot of the property owners in the area, and I think that, like I said, it would just be a real disservice if they didn't have opportunity to benefit, through the investment the city's making. So
it's un-American.
Right.
So it's un-American.
That was my last question.
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to make a statement if I could. I did attend the NCRC meeting last year or the beginning of this year. So I know that is the best group to go out if you're trying to talk with bankers and things like that. So I'm very encouraged by having your presence and the fact that we will be marketing this. So if there's any question about the banking industry and their the way we market this to them, then I think it's great to have the NCRC on our side with that.
Well, we appreciate that, and to their credit, the banks want to know what we're doing and where it provides an opportunity for them. They're not going to be drug into this meeting. They want to have this meeting as well. It's going to be win-win for the banks and win-win for the community. Only way we can do it.
Hello, my name is Brian Rice, and I have property at 610 19th Street, as well as 615 19th Street. Just to give an update on yesterday's meeting, I didn't speak at yesterday's meeting, but I feel like a lot of the concerns were everything that I wanted to be said was mostly said. I think the biggest concern is Red Birmingham received their funds back in October or November. They said November in the meeting yesterday, but I think it was announced in October. But it took the community to call a meeting yesterday for them to show up almost 7 months later. We must make our organizations who receive money, we must make the whole process accountable. We can't allow what's happening to Inslee to keep happening. I'm very passionate about this thing, and I know my voice changes. And since being there, there was a meeting that I was supposed to have in November. And one of the concerns was Red Birmingham coming to the meeting. And with around the McCormick building being the most important project in Inslee, being led by an organization that the community does not like as a whole, is a concern to me. And, so I just wanted to make sure I at least spoke out about that, because I believe the next step must be on the Inslee Merchants Association. We must reactivate the Inslee Merchants Association. As of yesterday, A.J. Callens gave me the EIN number, and we must make sure our organization is active over there, because we need to make sure we hire the consultants that we want in our communities to lead our communities. And so that's the main thing that I wanted to put out. Now, there are some other concerns I think Omar brought up in the meeting at the very end of the meeting yesterday. And I met with my attorney earlier today, and I'm not the only one. We can't get funding for downtown Inslee. Inslee has been a red line. And I have buildings, I have 8 buildings, and Synovus Bank told me my buildings have zero value. Zero value. And met with my attorney. We're going to do a press release. We're going to make this public. And I know there's at least 10 or 20 other people who are struggling to get money from Regions Bank, BBVA, Wells Fargo. And we must stand up for our community. Because the only reason why my buildings are not renovated is because they say my buildings have zero value. If these buildings were in Avondale, they would have 100% value. So we need people to stand up for us. I know when I first moved back to Birmingham, I think it was in downtown Birmingham, they had something called a float loan, where I think either you put up 20% or you put up 10% or 30%. And the city was backing these loans for downtown development by 30%. so the regions of the world and the Wells Fargos of the world would fund these projects. We need some type of incentives that's going to make these banks fund us in Inslee. And those are the statements that I just wanted to put out there. And but we need to make sure that Inslee Merchants Association is back active over the next few months, and I just wanted to make that statement.
Well, Brandon, just stand there for just a second. I just want to have a conversation with you. Brian, that's right. I'm thinking Brian Rice. Brian, let me say this much. I want to have a conversation with you on this. There is nothing more powerful than the voice of the citizens. Nothing. We had an example here just a couple of weeks ago where one community, 6 women fought hard and had us turn down a major investment for our city. If 6 women can do it, surely with this group behind you, anything is possible. And I like your passion about what you're trying to do and what you're doing. Your property is valued at whatever you set the value at. Nobody can tell you what you don't have. It takes us joining together and fighting for it. And I promise you this, we will be a voice for you and others. We will call, we will work just as hard as that other community fought to keep $10 million investment out of our city that would have benefited our children. One community. Stop that. They're building in Florida right now, already done broke ground, moving ahead. We cannot let the errors of the past define us. We must work together to make a difference. I like your passion. I'm here to help. I'm here to represent. I will fight as hard as you and along with you to make a difference. You have my pledge on that. Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
You know, I really appreciate all of you coming.
And, Scales, you have the opportunity Right now, you have the momentum. But I will tell everybody else that's running, run your best race. Anything may happen, but because you're going to learn so much on this journey. And whoever gets in, make sure you stand up for those who've been left out for 150 years. 1871 to 2021. Stand up for those who've been left out.
It's pay to play. We gotta quit it. This thing of going along to get along, we gotta quit it. When you're talking about standing up for what's right, you're not alone.
The chair now recognizes myself for 3 minutes of questioning. Mr. Secretary, I wanted to follow up on the line of questioning regarding the opportunity zones. I think that we're all agreed that it presents a wonderful opportunity for us to invest in distressed communities. This is a tremendous bipartisan opportunity to really affect communities, vulnerable communities in our nation. And the other thing is that I know that in January, my colleagues and I sent a bipartisan, bicameral letter raising a number of issues about the opportunity zones programs that remain unsettled. One was about data accountability. That was addressed a little bit by Mr. Kine in your response. I just want to make sure that that the focus is on having matrix that will actually get to whether or not communities, those communities actually benefited, the impact of the investment on the communities, in particular unemployment, but also ancillary things that actually can spawn from economic development. So I will work with my colleague, Mr. Kine, in helping to draft a letter of the kinds of matrix and the kinds of data accountability I think that would be necessary in order to make this really a win-win for the community as well as for the investors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Suzanne O'Keefe. I'm Communication Director of the Public Banking Institute. Today this episode is public banks versus redlining. And we have two important guests, and I will introduce them. Let me bring them on camera. Our first guest is Brian Rice. Brian is an entrepreneur and engineer who had been redlined essentially for financing he was looking for to redevelop and upgrade properties in his hometown of Birmingham, Alabama. We also have Dr. Amara Enya. She comes in. Here she is. And Dr. Amara Enya was a candidate for mayor of Chicago, and she is very much well-versed in the impact that public banks could have on communities and how this situation could be different.
Well, this week's community champion refers to himself as a community engineer.
Yeah, this week, Eunice Elliott visits with someone who's been able to combine several of his passions for one purpose.
I've kind of called myself a community engineer lately, because I'm really merging everything that I've learned in engineering with my passion for the community.
Having pursued a career in engineering, construction, and real estate in Charlotte and Houston, Brian K. Rice is now focusing all of those passions into renovating a historic area of Ensley. His vision is a combination of commerce and community.
We all just need to figure out how to just get to that next level. So we're starting to do more communication across the community, across the downtown area. We just got to figure out how to develop it.
Brian purchased a block of buildings last year and is facing several challenges in getting the resources needed to restore them. But he is committed to changing the narrative of African Americans in business in the city.
It has always been possible. The biggest challenge for African Americans is getting resources to develop their own spaces. I believe with my background in engineering, my background in construction, my background in real estate, and then my background in sales and business development, for me, I feel like I can do my part and develop my spaces or recruit other people to help me develop these spaces.
Just this week, Brian was awarded a $138,000 Birmingham Bold grant to help with some of the renovations he has planned for the area.
When you look at downtown Ensley, the fabric of the commercial buildings are here. Everything is here, but nobody's ever seen any of us take the lead.
In addition to the business side, through his nonprofit, Heroes Bridge, Inc., Brian is committed to offering mentorship and opportunities with one goal:
to create and develop a healthy and balanced community. When I think of downtown Ensley, or I think of the whole Ensley community, there's a huge gap for youth programs. There's a huge gap for senior activities and senior facilities. In Birmingham, there's a huge gap for entrepreneurship development for African Americans.
Brian knows his goals are ambitious, but he believes the result will be worth it.
Do I get discouraged? One of my friends the other day said, Brian, a lot of people see the Superman in you, where you just don't give up and you're posting these positive posts, but they don't see that Clark Kent side where you're getting beat up by the whole process. It's going to take way more than me. We already have some great people here, but we need a lot more in order to develop this community. So for me, it's just encouragement to keep going.
I love that. I hope that his plan I hope that he thrives with his plan.
He seems to have a plan. He seems to be putting it in action. He just needs a little more support from the community he's working in.